Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming to my session. Today I'm going to talking about the how to build an incubator and accelerator for local indie game developers from my experience in Japan. But at first, I like to introduce myself. Actually, I'm doing several jobs at the same time. I'm the CEO at Rhythm Sync, a game consulting company in Japan, supporting like bigger Japanese game companies to expand their business outside Japan. And then I'm also the co-founder and the Secretary General at the iGi Indie Game Incubator, the first and only Japanese game incubator in Japan. And then also, how can I say, from this year, I'm also the advisor for the first publicly funded game acceleration program called SOFU. And then finally, from last year, I'm also the chairperson at the iGi Incubation Sheet, the collaborative project of the incubators and accelerators in the 60 countries. Today, I'm actually very excited to be here because I speak in like 20 countries. I spoke in like Europe, North America, Latin America, like Middle East, Asia, Africa. So this is for me, I think this is my final continent to be have a speaker session. So I'm so excited to be here. Thank you very much. Yeah. So here's today's agenda. First, I'm going to explain about my, how can I say, experience for making, how can I say, first and the only game incubation program in Japan at first. And the second, I'm going to talking about how to work with government in order to start the first publicly funded game accelerator. And third, what could be, what can we do together? So then I'm going to do that talking about the indie game scene in Japan. Actually, I don't know if you how do you familiar with Japanese indie game scene, Japanese indie game scene. Actually, recently, how can I say that some of the famous title, some of the good title from Japan becomes popular even in the international market. So you know some of the titles, but actually. For the, how can I say, the indie, for the people who are working for the indie game publisher or indie game investor, sometimes it's difficult to, how can I say, see the whole things about the Japanese indie scene. Actually, how can I say, but it's still a very big thing. They have actually, at least according to my colleague, the Ichijo-san, he's coming from actually indie game company in Japan, and he said that actually we have like more than 10,000 indie game developers are working for their own title in Japan. But how can I say, their background is very diverse. Let me explain about my. Explain. Actually, they are kind of the how I wrote in the four graphs, four diagrams, and then actually how can I say, on the top left, this is a kind of the international meaning of the indie game. Who want to publish the game onto the Steam, and then they want to make a premium or they download content game on the how can I say, the PC, and then focusing on the international market, or the such people. Actually, they are the kind of a pretty newcomer in view of the Japanese indie game scene, because we have a, how can I say, some other category. For example, like a Dojin game. Do you know the Dojin game actually? I think so. Nobody know about that. Actually, the Dojin game is like a amateur, like a kind of the, how can I say, indie game developer working as a like a hobbyist indie game developer in Japan, and they have a very long history of making such a Dojin game, like a how can I say, more than 20 years or something. So actually, how can I say? But at the same time, they are not so. They, for example, like 5 or 6 years ago, they don't work in the international indie game scene. because they sell their game into the physical game market, like a comic market or some other places, in order to sell their games. Yeah, and then for example, the game called Sakuna, The Rise and Ruins, which sold more than 1.5 million copies. They are made by the how can I say? They are coming from this category. Actually, how can I say that they are the kind of the oldest indie game scene in Japan, and then they are very proud of themselves. And then, but that at the same time, how can I say they are more focusing on the peers and the community. How can I say who like the similar games or the similar how can I say the similar preference. Yeah, and the second, I just want to go to the downright free games community. This is also the kind of the old game community in Japan, old indie game community in Japan. They are usually using the RPG Maker in order to make your game, and then the interesting thing is that they don't make no monetization. It's a bit is a bit strange from how can I say the Western point of view, but actually they have such a community. They have actually they have a several example. Do you know the? I think you know the Hotline Miami. The developer of Hotline Miami suggests that they are strongly influenced by the free game developer in Japan. And one guy, according to the how can I say the interview to the how can I say the developer of Hotline Miami and the developer digital, I heard, and actually they are influenced by the game developer called Hakaiman, who made like a 2D top view. How can I say the free PC game, and then it strongly inspires to the how can I say the such a how can I say the first kind of the big legend of the Western indie game. So actually the how can I say that it has a very strong impact. And then third, mobile apps, which comes in the 2000. When we how can I say have a new App Store or the Google Play into the Japanese game market as well, and then some of the individual game developer make their own how can I say titles into this category, and then some of them get several titles still get the how can I say the good presence. Yeah. And then from the 2010s or something, and then the international meaning of indie games are coming into Japan, and then some people try to make their own game. They try to make their games in the very similar way in the Western countries. Yeah. So, but actually, how can I say they have various how can I say the backgrounds. Dojin game or the free game indie games in Japan, and they have their different point of sense of making a game, and then they have their own interesting culture. But how can I say it sometimes how can I say overlaps. It doesn't overlaps, but from the at the time of the during the COVID era, their community is more unified. And for example, the people who make the Dojin game, they made a game to the physical market. I told you, but they now they change to sell also into the PC Steam market as well. So their how can I say selling style is not so different from indie games now. Yeah. So actually, the how can I say these categories is currently unifying, and then the how can I say making the bigger category of the Japanese indie scene, I think. So, however, actually, when I started the first game incubator in Japan, at the time in the I was in it was in the 2020, we have a lot of how can I say difficulties. Actually, you know that whenever you visit like Japan and visit like Tokyo Game Show or some other event, you feel that most of the Japanese people cannot speak English. So yeah, it's kind of the first bigger how can I say bigger language barrier. In order to how can I say selling the game outside of Japan, but recently you know that some of the machine translation tool like Google Translation or some other, how can I say, the tool might be useful to, how can I say, communicate even in like email or some other things. So I think the language barrier is decreasing gradually and gradually. I think so. But still we had several problems. At the time of the 2020, they have no governmental support to the game industry. It's a little bit strange from your point of view because how can I say that Japan is a very large game industry. We have a lot of bigger company like a Nintendo, Sony, Square Enix, Konami, or such a really big giants. And then, but actually, the Japanese government think like this. Oh, they are very profitable. Why don't they, how can I say, support more or something like that? So that's why, how can I say, actually the governmental people are not so interested in the supporting the, how can I say, the gaming scene at the time. And then, for example, they don't know if they don't, when I talked with governmental officials at that time, they don't even know the terminology indie game. What is indie game? Is it coming from India or something? So yeah, like that. So yeah, so it's a little. It takes a lot of time to and how can I say, the action to, how can I say, talk, explain about what's happened in the, how can I say, gaming scene. And the second, it's a bit. It's also a little bit strange. It's difficult for the Japanese indie game developer to get a financial support. Actually, in the Western countries, it's important to connect with publisher or the investor. But in Japan, it's still now it's very difficult to connect with gaming investors. Why? Because for the bigger company, they have sometimes they have a CVC, corporate venture capital, but they want to work for the non-gaming sector in order to make a portfolio. And then for the non-gaming investor, they don't know anything about the game industry, so it's difficult to invest. So that's why, how can I say, the number of the game investor was very limited in Japan. And in addition to that, actually, most of the interesting characteristic is that for the Japanese indie game scene is that most of the Japanese indie game developer are solo game developer. They don't have team. They don't have how can I say, they don't have a team, and they even use a fake name. Do you know why? Because in Japan, most of the companies, including game companies, banned side job. Recently, such a, how can I say, side job matters is easing, but still, like a game producer working in a bigger company don't like the, how can I say, their, how can I say, their programmers and their graphics to work in another project, their own project. So yeah, for example, if they work in their own project, then if they find us, so yeah, like that. So that's why, how can I say, most of the indie game developer uses a fake name, or even like how can I say, don't use their own photo in order not to, how can I say, in order to be invisible from their, how can I say, other colleagues, yeah, and other bosses. So yeah, it's a bit strange, but sometimes, how can I say, a lot of international game publisher ask me, why does a Japanese indie game developer uses fake name? Or why don't they like, how can I say, getting investment? Because, how can I say, if they get the investment, if they get the team, it will increase the visibility toward their boss, right? So yeah, this is a kind of a big difficulty inside the Japanese indie scene at that time. Yeah. And also, how can I say, the third, as I told you, we have a lot of big companies. And then even in Japan, we have such a, how can I say, the B2B game developers event, like GCAP. We have a CESA Game Developers Conference, largest game developers conference in Japan, held by the CESA, the Japanese game industrial organization. But you know that, for example, in GDC or in this event, a lot of lectures are related to the indie game developers, I think. But if you go to SEDEC, the number of the indie game indie game lecture is very, very limited. Recently, like in the 2024, this year or last year, it's in the lecture about the indie game is increasing, but it's still very, very limited. Yeah, because how can I say, they have a big gap between the indie game scene and the big game developer scene. From the big game developer scenes, I think it's not true, but some of the people have a bias to the indie game developers that they are like a kind of the amateur game developer or something like that. So they bias like that. Recently, such a how can I say bias is corrected. I feel. I think how can I say that now the things is improving gradually. But actually, how can I say, since our history of the game industry for the bigger company was too long, that the people regard, how can I say, game industry is to enter the bigger companies, and then their ultimate goal is to enter Nintendo and making Mario or something. Yeah, so yeah, they thought like that. So a lot of people thought like that, but things is changing. So then, anyway, so the 5 years ago, the situation is like that. So that's why, how can I say, that's why I feel the importance of the supporting the indie game developers in Japan, yeah, in order to change that situation. Yeah, actually, the how can I say, the interesting thing is that how can I say, yeah. I was, how can I say, started my career as a researcher outside of Japan in order to make a research about the game market and the game industry in the, how can I say, the various countries. So, but how can I say, through visiting the various countries, for example, in Asia, they have a lot of game incubator, and in Australia they have some game related to incubation program. North America, Latin America, they also have the similar thing. Even in Africa they have something, and then sometimes even they don't have, they can apply for the, like for example, for the countries like Ghana or Nigeria, they can apply for the like English incubation program. Meanwhile, for the like people in the Congo or some other countries, recently they have a GARA. The GARA is a very good program owned by the French, supported by the French government to support the French-speaking indie game developers. And then, yeah, they have a lot of such a, how to say, a supporting program for indie game developers, and even they have an international program. But for the Japanese indie game developers' point of view, it's super difficult to attend such a program because they cannot speak English. So that's why I feel the need of the, how can I say, making a game incubator for the Japanese-speaking people. Yeah. Actually, at the time, I talked with I talked with Marvelous, and then the Marvelous is a Japanese game publisher. Actually, I was so lucky because I made a, how can I say, presentation towards them 2 weeks before the release of the Sakuna: The Rise and Reigns. Sakuna is like a, how to say, indie game title published by Marvelous. And then it sold 1 million. It has a it provides a big profit to the Marvelous. So I made a presentation 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the, how can I say, such a release. So that's why, how can I say, they feel that indie game could be a very profitable even for us. So then the making new incubator could be a good idea or something like that. So I was so lucky about that. And then I talked with some of the, how can I say, indie game developers, and then the indie game related people inside and outside of Japan in order to make this initiative. Actually, I just write down the scheme. Actually, this program was, how can I say, worked with Game BCN. Game BCN is a game incubation program in Barcelona in Spain. And then they had a longer experience, and then the very good program manager, and then they still support us. And Ludimus is my game company, game consulting company. Meanwhile, for Head High is the, how can I say, the actual indie game developer who writes books about how to survive for the indie game developers or something like that. And then we select like 20 mentors. in order to support 5 teams with the help of the industrial side, university side, and Kobe City. We got the support from Kobe City, local government. As I told you, I said the government does never support game industry. I use technique. What is a technique? Sister city program. Actually, the Kobe City is a sister city of Barcelona. So I talked at Barcelona at first, and then ask us to support us. And then later, I also asked them to, how can I say, connect with Kobe City, their sister city. And then finally, I got the connection. Yeah, we got the connection like that. So yeah, but at that time, it was still difficult to, how can I say, work with such a local government and the central government. But finally, we got the connection. And then, yeah, actually, how was the mentorship scheme? We had lectures and one-on-one meeting with mentors and split meetings. And then we had a 6-month project. We started from April and we ended on the September. And we have a demo day in October. And then during a 6-month program, we have a mentoring session about the development and the business side. I think this is very, very, how can I say, the basic scheme of the game incubation, kind of comparable to other country, I think. And then here's our mentors. We have some of the, how can I say, the development mentors, business mentors, who are very, how can I say, have a very extensive knowledge and experience in view of the indie game scene in Japan. And we also work with international mentors like Jason De Luca and Oscar Clark and Brandon Sheffield and Lawrence Grimaldi. I think some of you know Jason De Luca, yeah, and some other people, yeah. So, okay. Actually, how can I say, also, how can I say, I try to, how can I say, connect with, how can I say, this international game tool maker who understand the importance of the game to incubation program at first. So that's why, how can I say, I got the support from Epic Games or Unity or some other companies. Also, I also try to contact with game platformers. It seems that, how can I say, we are connected with like a PlayStation or Xbox or some other companies and Valve, because how can I say, they are all of them understand the importance of the supporting indies. Yeah. So yeah, how can I say, for the sponsor matters, our, how can I say, our strategy is to connect the international bigger, how can I say, supporter for the indie game at the first, and then next connect with like domestic companies or something like that. So then finally we got such a, how can I say, lot of, how can I say, supporters for our incubation program. Although at the time of the, how can I say, 2020 or 2021, other indie supporting program or the indie game publisher is coming into Japan as well, like Shueisha, Kodansha. They are like the manga publisher in Japan, Japanese comic publisher. They started to make a game publisher 3 or 4 years ago. And then we try to work with them and then persuade them, like how can I say, we are not rival, we are the kind of the collaborator, because how can I say, the indie game incubation program bring the very good the indie game developer who could be like how can I say, potential applicant for their publishing program or something like that. And then also, how can I say, so that's why, how can I say, we keep working on the such Japanese indie supporters. And then also, at the time of the, how can I say, 2020 or 2021, you remember that, how can I say, at the time it was a COVID era, but after the, how can I say, from the 2022, I run into the, how can I say, the Gamescom, and using Me Too Much, try to connect to a lot of, how can I say, the indie game publisher in Western countries, and then I persuade like this. Actually, they are interested in investing into the Asian market, but they don't know the presence of the Asian market at that time. And they don't know the presence of the Japanese indie game scene at that time. And then I told them that please use as like a scouting point for the Japanese indie scene. We have actually we are very invisible, but we have a diverse indie game scene, and it's very valuable to how can I say watching them in order to find a good title. So that's why how can I say that they and also I also tell them that in going to our demo day is great. Not only for how can I say finding an indie game team, but also working with a Japanese indie game publisher, because sometimes Japanese indie game publisher have their title, and then the Japanese game publisher have their own title from Japan, and then they are still working seeking for a partner in Western countries or like in the other regions. So that's why how can I say the visiting demo day could help them finding not only finding our incubated teams, but also finding other partners in Japan. Yeah. So we try to how can I say, persuade a lot of indie game publisher. So that's why we got a lot of support from indie game publisher around the world. And then for example, as for the demo day in Shibuya, we have like 30 game publishers attended our demo day, and then the more than 70 publishers involved online actually. Yeah. So far we are currently in the 4th batch, and then we've already supported these titles. The top left and the top right, Never Awake and the Death the Guitar. That they are like how can I say they got the grand prize at the Bit Summit, the largest indie game event in Japan, and then they got the how can I say the great how can I say attention from various people. And the 34 Ever Lost on the down left title, they got the how can I say offer from more than 20 or 20 game publishers or something, and then it has very popular. And then finally it got the support from Plasm, the largest Japanese indie game publisher. And down right, this game is also developed by the 3rd batch alumni for us. Do you know that this title, Exit 8? You know, some of you know that. Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Actually, the developer of this title apply for our program, not for this title. The Kotake-san, he's making the Exit 8 for the kind of practice of the how can I say releasing their game into Steam market. And then but how can I say his gaming design was so great that it becomes a 1 million hit title. Yeah, actually 1 million hit is a very good number for the solo game developer, I think. Yeah, and then they are actually he's currently making his own applying title called Strange Shadow. It's another horror title. I hope how can I say he could be a how can I say he could has a great works. Yeah. Okay. So then the next I like to go to the launch of the Soulful Acceleration Program. Actually, as I told you, at the time of the 2020, the Japanese government doesn't how can I say have any supporting program for the indie game or even for the game industry. However, last year or the year before last, the tendency of the Japanese government to the game industry is changing. I'd like to show you why. First, do you know Keidanren? Keidanren is like a business roundtable in the I don't know, in Australia, do you have a business roundtable? Like a business, like an industrial association for the whole economic, how can I say, the bigger companies or something like that. They have a very strong, how can I say, the lobbyist for the Ministry of Economy in Japan, and then they made a, how can I say, the political offer called Entertainment Content 2023. And according to the how can I say, the political offer, political proposal, they said that how do I say, it's very important to increase the number of the creators. Not only in the game, but also in the anime or manga and the various sectors. And then how do I say, it has a very, very strong impact toward the Japanese government because how do I say, this is a political offer from largest economic federation in Japan. Yeah. And then also, meanwhile, it's also happened in the last year, from last year, and then the how do I say, the Japanese cabinet starts to work for like a public-private council on the content industry. And then they now understand how can I say, the importance of the supporting creator making how can I say, creator not only support how can I say, the particular industry, but also support the whole how can I say, economic and cultural scene in Japan. So actually, from this year, the Japanese government has several programs related to the how can I say, supporting the game industry. Actually, the how can I say, the we have two governmental organizations who support the game industry: Ministry of Economy in Japan and the Agency for Cultural Affairs, Government of Japan. METI supports the how can I say, game industry in view of economy. Meanwhile, Agency for Cultural Affairs support the game industry in view of culture. And actually, the how can I say, that they have a the how can I say, the policy, the governmental program particular to the game industry. Also, they also have a how can I say, the governmental policies including the game industry, mainly for the general matters. But how can I say, they also include the game industry. Actually, for the case of the Ministry of Economy, they have a SOFU they have a SOFU program, which I will talk to you later. And then the METI also have a how can I say, the JLOX Plus. This is a how can I say, the governmental subsidy for the Japanese companies to expand their business outside of Japan. And then did you know the how can I say, did you visit the Gamescom like 2 or 3 years ago? We had a Japan pavilion, and then by the some of the indie game publishers in Japan. And then I heard how can I say, they got the subsidy of the JLOX Plus. I heard. Meanwhile, for the how can I say, Agency for Cultural Affairs, at the time of the Tokyo Game Show this year, they announced a new program, Top Game Creators Academy. I don't know the how can I say, the exact matters about that, but I heard that they also support the game industry as well, especially for the industrial point of view. And then finally, for the general matters, the Agency for Cultural Affairs, they had a festival for the 5 or 6 years, for longer years, in order to have like an award for the media art creators, including games. And then like how can I say, last year or a few years ago, they started a program called how can I say, Encounters, and then the project to support the media arts, including games. Yeah, like that. So actually the how can I say, we have a lot of how can I say, radical change from the how can I say, scratch, I think. Yeah. So yeah, as I told you, how can I say, like 4 or 5 years ago, when I visited like some of the Japanese government, they don't even understand the how can I say, concept of the indie game scene. But now they really how can I say, try to support the indie game scene, and then they often ask a lot of how can I say, the Japanese indie game developer how to support them. Yeah, because they also understand supporting the indie game scene is how can I say, supporting the new IP. Yeah, and supporting new IP is also very, very important for the Japanese content industry. So yeah, so now I think their attitude is changing very, very rapidly. Yeah. So actually, here is a scheme of the SOFU project. The Minister of Economy pay for the everything, and then the Yomiko Advertising pay for the 5 million yen to the around 10 teams, and then the 5 million yen is like $30,000 US. Yeah, and then this is like a kind of a donation, yeah. And they have a movie division and a game division. And then the game division, as for the game division, our incubation program iGi supports for the gaming division actually, yeah. So we have such mentors. Maybe you know some of them, like Rami Ismail or Fauzi Mismar, or some of the mentors from a game like Team 17, like Kowloon Knights, or like a Me Too Match, or some other famous figures. This time, how can I say, we try to make a game accelerator, not an incubator. Game incubator supports for the early to mid stage program, mid stage titles. Meanwhile, accelerator supports the mid to late stage titles. For the mid to late stage title, it's very important to connect with the international market. And then, as you know, most of the Japanese game developers cannot speak English, and they are a little bit shy people. Sometimes it's difficult to shy people to connect with international publisher. So that's why, how can I say, this time I try to, how can I say, make a kind of publishing mentor. Yeah, ask the publisher to become a kind of mentor for everyone. Yeah, because how can I say, in order to get accustomed to the international way of the publishing or investing, it's much better. It's better to, how can I say, communicate everyone. Yeah. So this time I try to, how can I, so that's why we have a lot of, how can I say, the mentors from famous game publishers and investors actually. Software program starts from July in this year, and then we will end on the next year March, and we have a final report meeting, and then luckily in the November we plan to have a, how can I say, the kind of the co-publishing day with the Spielfabrik. Do you know the Spielfabrik? Spielfabrik is a European game acceleration program. Actually, they are very focusing on the, how can I say, the supporting the business side of the indie game scene in Europe, and then they tried. Actually, the Spielfabrik will bring the European game developers and the European game publishers, and we will bring Japanese game developers and then Asian game publishers. We try to, how can I say, increase the number of the such cases in the various countries, but we try to make such a case from or case between the Europe and Japan at first. Yeah. I just put a comparison. For the iGi, we support, as I told you, we support early to mid stage title. We support 5 teams, and we support PC teams. Meanwhile, for the software, we support like a mid to late stage titles. We give them the 5 million yen per person, and then we support like 10 teams, and then they're supporting like not only PC but also for the mobile and VR. Yeah. Yeah, here's our the first batch titles. Some of them are like console PC titles. Others are on the center title. This is a XR title. How can I say, the title changed very drastically due to the, how can I say, the advice from VR XR mentors. Yeah, I think they are on the very good trail. And then they had a exhibition at the Tokyo Game Show actually. Okay. So far, I talked about what's going on for the, how can I say, the Japanese incubator, and what's going on for the Japanese accelerator, and what was the support for the Japanese government. And now I'm talking in Australia. So what could be the next step, and how can we work together? Actually, through working for the, how can I say, Japan, the iGi, a lot of hard game incubator outside of Japan ask me for the collaboration from Asia, from Europe, from Latin America, and then but how can I say, it was so much, and then I was also surprised that we have so many incubators around the world, and then and I also found that they are very local focused. And sometimes they don't have a good visibility outside their own country. For example, one of the cases from Croatia. In Croatia, in Europe, they have a game incubator called Pismo. They are doing a very good program, and finally supported by the government. But actually, their website is only available in Croatian, not in the English. So it's very difficult for the international people to find that program actually. And the same thing is happening in the other game incubator. So that's why I think it's important to, how can I say, make a network of incubator and accelerator through my experience of the iGi and Sofu. So that's why last year, and also in addition to that, last year when I visited GDC, I found a lot of roundtable, but we've never seen the roundtable about the incubation. So that's why I talked with JT Vera, the executive director of IGDA, to ask him, why don't we make a new incubation ship? So then finally, how can I say, they make approval to make a new IGDA incubation ship. So that's why, how can I say, I'm talking about this. So yeah, and finding this organization in this February actually, and then yeah, this program is to supporting like incubators, accelerators, and the communities who plan to make the new incubators around the world to support the existing incubators, accelerators. Our purpose is to support the existing incubators, accelerators, to help building the new incubators or accelerators, or to enhance the relationship of the industrial ecosystem builders through interaction of incubators and making events like a co-exhibition, co-publishing day, and research like a white paper about incubation. Actually, we have a kind of a big map. We have more than 100 organizations from 60 countries join our IGDA incubation ship program. In Australia, we work with Screen Queensland, and then the SMART program in the Victoria, and then in New Zealand we also work with the CODE, and yeah, like that. And then in Europe and Asia, Latin America, North America, they have a lot of incubator or the game developers community who really want to make a game incubator. I had a lot of, how can I say, difficulty in making a new incubator and accelerator in Japan, and then I have a kind of sympathy for the game developers community for around the world, and then I understand the difficulty in making a new incubator and accelerator. So that's why, how can I say, we try to support them all over the world. So actually, we have, how can I say, 14 board members, and I'm actually very humble to do that, chairperson, honestly speaking. But actually, the few weeks ago, we had a second general assembly, and then we keep working on the, how can I say, this member. And then we have how can I say, leaders, and then actually we have 7 regional leaders: Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, Middle East, North America, and Oceania. Actually, we dare to create the Oceanian region because how can I say, the the developers' demand and the request from Oceanian region is very different from how can I say, Asian region or some other region, and it's very important to support the Oceanian region independently. And sometimes they can be, how can I say, work with Asian people, and sometimes they can work with European people, American people. So yeah, I try to, how can I say, how can I say, support the local request as much as we try to support the local request as much as possible. And then currently the V from CODE, she's doing a really great job for the Oceanian, doing a Oceanian leader. Yeah, I just put like sessions and meetups on the top left. We had our first GDC roundtable in this year. On the top right, we had a lot of, how can I say, sessions related to the incubation acceleration at the time of the Brazilian Gamescom Latam. And then we had how can I say, great talk with Game Industry Association in there in order to make a new game accelerator. On the down left, we had also in this year, we had like a big party for incubators and big party for incubators and accelerators in Gamescom. On the down right, you can find that V is also working in here And then we had a panel about incubation and the DI and E. Yeah. In addition to that, I'm very happy to see that we've already have a lot of collaboration of incubators accelerators. Bologna Game Hub, Bologna Game Farm in Italy, they are like a game acceleration program. They start to work with a New York Game Center. They make a cross-pitching event, and they have a kind of same Discord server in order to make a feedback for each of them. And also, also in this year, as I told you, we have the co-publishing day between the Sofu and Spielfabrik. Yeah, we try to increase these cases as much as possible. And in this region, especially in Oceania, it is very important to make such a intercontinental collaboration, because a lot of I found that a lot of indie game developers in here are feeling the difficulty in finding a game publisher or game investor. And sometimes even difficult to communicate online because of the time, very big time difference. Yeah, so that's why I try to make such cases also in Oceania as well. And finally, we plan to make a new co-exhibition about the game incubators and accelerators. In November, after the WePlay, we have a WN conference in Xiamen in Fujian, southeastern part of China. Actually, Simon from Chinese Indie Game Association, Shiga, he is currently discussing with the organizer of the game event in the Xiamen, China, for the first-hand co-exhibition of IGDA incubation SIG as a test. And then we try to include APAC. It means Asia and Oceania, the game incubator accelerators, in order to make a visibility for the Chinese game users. Actually, you know that China is a very big market for the game, indie game developers, especially for the Steam market. So that's why I think it could make an opportunity also for the Oceanian people and even for Japanese people to make make the visibility for the game users and game publishers, I think. And then we try to increase the more and more case about the co-exhibition and the co-demo day for the next year, supported by sponsors. Yeah. Okay, that's the end of my session. Actually, I talked about my first game incubator, iGi, the first accelerator, Sofu, and the IGD incubation SIG. I think with the Oceanian people, as for Oceanian people, we could work we can work a lot of things, I think. So if you have any question and if you have any suggestion, or if I can help you to make a new game accelerator or incubator in your region, please let me know. I'm happy to help you. Thank you very much. So it seems that the 2 minutes left. Would you have any question? Please let me know. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Stephen Tran, student at AIE. So in regards to cross-region initiatives, how does the indie game incubator actively work towards that towards the future?
Could you tell?
So in regards to like expanding cross-region initiatives for indie games, how do you do that? How do you approach that in regards to like the future years in 2025 and beyond?
Okay. Yeah. Actually, as I told you, IGDA incubation SIG already have a network of the more than 100 incubators and accelerators, and then we have like a task force related to the co-exhibition and co-demo day or something. And then we are currently in talking. These the people are working for the task force, making a project related to the co-exhibition and the co-demo day and something. But actually, we are currently in the first year, so that's why we try to make a test So that's why, as I told you, how can I say, we try to make a test of that, like this event, or like a test of the, such a cross-publishing or co-publishing, in order to show the people how effective it is. Yeah. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. I want to ask about government. What government, Japan governments do to support develop game developer? What the exactly program or what the governments do to leveling up the local developer, local game developer, and maybe we can get some information about the government side because we are from the government. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Actually, like the European government, now they have the game developer support from industry side and the cultural side. And then we have two organizations, Ministry of Economy and the Agency for the Cultural Affairs. Both of them support the game industry. And then the Ministry of Economy supports the game acceleration program. Meanwhile, Japan Cultural Agency supports like a culture support or media support. Yeah. Or like an exhibition or something. So, yeah.
What kind of support? What kind of governmental support? They bring some loan or the program, exactly program or
okay. As for the which one?
Ministry of Economy.
Ministry of Economy. Okay. As for the SOFU program, as I showed you, this is the support. This is a support scheme. The Ministry of Economy pay for the whole things about the game acceleration program.
Pay full.
Pay for all things, including the how can I say the mentor fee, and then the also for the how can I say the paying for the 5 million yen to the 10 teams. Yeah,
Okay.
They are paying for all of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Yes, please. Wait. Sorry. So later. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. Yeah. Okay.